So I wanted to make another video here, like real quick, and talk about love and why most marriages, you give it 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15. Something happens, and it doesn't last. Doesn't last, and most of the time it's because someone will be like, "Well, this isn't the person I married." This isn't the person I married, and the thing is that it is. It's just you never really knew the person you married. And so what do I mean by this? Well, I mean, when you meet someone and I can speak from a woman's perspective or from a man's perspective. It's not difficult to understand. Where, you meet the hot doctor, you're both young, you're both attractive, you meet the, you kind of lust for each other, and then emotionally you create this knot, like this. People call it a soul tie, but it's not really your soul. It's not really who the person actually is. It's more so just you both feel good in a moment, and you end up falling in love with these memories that you have with this person, because oh, we've been together for 2 years, we've been together for 3 years. And in your heart, though, it's subject to change, because today, you know hubby, or Barbie doll is working in the oil patch, makes 100 something thousand a year, you know young, attractive, fit, healthy, all this stuff. But then you know you get married, and then 2 years later, God forbid, there's a accident that happens, or they lose their job or something like that. Next thing you know, they're quadriplegic. You have two kids, and you know they lose their job, and they can't give you the life that you married into. And so next thing you know, you're gonna be like, I'm sorry, but this isn't what I married. Like, this is not what I signed up for. Because next thing you know, you gotta wash them in the bathtub, man. They can't wash themselves. Next thing you know, you're you're wiping their butt, bro. You know what I mean? And the thing is do you love them? Can you still be with them? Do you still have you know do you still have those feelings? You know, most people would say no, man. That's not. I'm sorry, but like, this is not the life that I wanted, because and that's real. And but at the same time, it's, did you really love the person? Because if you did, something like that, it would be hard. It would be hard. You're washing them, and the next thing life doesn't stop. So the kids are going, "Mom, I'm hungry. Mom, this." The kids suspended from school. That. Blah blah blah. All this is happening all at once, overwhelming you, and then you're like, "I can't do it anymore. I can't do this anymore. Can't do it." Another example would be, today you're both young and attractive. Today she's a rocket, bro. She's a rocket. You know, Fast forward, you're 60 years old. You're not sexually attracted to this woman anymore. Real life. Or the woman. You're not attracted to this man anymore. This isn't the this is this isn't what you signed up for. And all these young people walking past, or younger. Now there's thoughts of affairs and stuff like that, and the thing is like, can you let that go? Like, can you sacrifice? Like, what I'm saying to you is that a lot of times we fall in love with the situation, the circumstance, the emotions, the memories that we have with people and stuff like that. But you know maybe the doctor they are today, you know, in 2 years they're going to be like, you know what, this isn't for me, I don't want this. And you're going to be like, what are you talking about, you don't want this? Right? What do you mean you don't want this? And he's like, well, my dream is to open a convenience store. My dream is to make Hot Wheels. Like my dream, like, you know what I'm saying? And so next thing you know, they switch it, and now the whole life has changed. And so now you can't go to girls' night and drink bottomless margaritas, or you know, all these things. Like the whole circumstance, the whole situation has changed on you. And you're gonna be like, this is not what I married into. Like this was not what I said I can do for life. Because that it's supposed to be you and them for life, regardless of what happens. Right? So that, you know, when Jesus was on the cross, man, when Jesus was on the cross and we were beating him and, you know, turning him into Swiss cheese, you know, really, like, the truth. And then nailed him on the cross and you know, still mocking him. You know, still going, you know, oh, you know, saved all these people but can't save himself. And this is God on the cross, listening to all his children say all this to him after they did this evil, horrible thing to him. And, you know, he could have wiped us off the face of the earth. Like right there, he could have. He could have if he wanted to, but he chose to endure. He was like, no, I love them. And he was even like praying and saying, like, you know, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. To himself. Had to look to the sky. You know, couldn't look at us. And this is what I'm saying is, can you do that for your wife? Can you do that for your husband? You know, they might betray you. They might do the worst thing they ever could have done to you. Had an affair. You know, met with their coworker. You know, betrayed you. Sold you out. You know, they might have done it for years. They might have done it multiple times, and you just found out. Or maybe you found out they did it again. Can you forgive them? If the answer is no, then you need to start paying attention to who you're actually in bed with, like who you're actually marrying, who you're actually having this relationship with, because it's more than just who they are today. You need to think about who they could become tomorrow. Could you love them anyway? Could you love this person regardless? Could you love them even though they're not going to be able to give you, you know, the $1 million house? Or maybe you're in the $1 million house and then they lose it. You lose it all. And all you have is each other. Is that enough? And of course it's going to be difficult. Of course it's going to be hard. Right? You might not be able to do it, but are you willing? Are you willing to try? Are you willing to do it? Are you willing, like, that? That's what it is. Because if not, I mean, don't be shocked. Don't be shocked. You know, that, you know, this person is not who you thought they were. You know, or they didn't maintain that image. Because a lot of times, man, you know, you think, I'm falling in love with this person, or I love this person, I love who this is. But both of you, when you're together, are literally trying to figure each other out on like who you want the other to be. Because you both want each other. And so it's this game where you're trying to mirror, reflect each other back in, like, at each other. Like you're trying to become something, like become this person's Prince Charming, or you're trying to become this person's, you know, Barbie or whatever, right? And the thing is that it's not built on truth, because truth is you're not going to like everything about this person. So if you find yourself saying, oh dude, this is the person of my dreams, odds are you're still dreaming. Odds are you're still dreaming, because they're not being honest with you about something. Because if you find yourself and there's nothing you hate about this other person, and nothing that makes you go, wow, right? Like, it makes you go, what? right? You don't really know that person because, you know, you don't want reality to hit you too late when you're already invested in, and then now you have to accept all this stuff, because next thing you know, you're going to be unhappy, you know. You don't want that for your life. That isn't what you wanted in the first place. And so when a relationship doesn't work out after you moved in together and did this and did this and did this, right? And invested in each other and all this kind of stuff, but then eventually, something happens where I'm just not in it anymore. I don't love them anymore. And it's because you never did. It never actually was a love for the person. It was a love for the circumstance, because everything was new. There was adrenaline. There was a rush. There was all this stuff, but then time went on. Time went on, and what do people say? Time always tells. And so time goes on, and next thing you know, it's not an adrenaline rush anymore. Next thing you know, it's a routine. Next thing you know, it's I'm just not here anymore. There's something better for me. I need to work on myself. I need to do that. Well, no wonder. It's because you're trying to figure out who you actually are, because who you have been is not you. Never was. Never was. And so that's why, I really just want to tie it into saying circumstances, man, because that's the most important. Because, God forbid, you're in an amazing relationship, you're married, you have kids and stuff, and then next thing you know, tragedy, life happens, man. Life happens, something unexpected happens. God forbid. But, now your sexual needs aren't being met. Now your lifestyle needs aren't being met. Now your parenting needs aren't being met, because now this person, the kids are, they don't have respect. And you feel like I'm all alone, and now I have to work 2 jobs, and now I have to do this, and now I have to do that, and then now I'm dealing with my partner who is suffering mentally, and I don't want to come in the house. I want to sit in the driveway in my car for like 2 hours before I get home. Next thing you know, babe, I gotta stay late. I'm staying late, and then you head over to Hooters, or not a Hooters, but you'll head over to the bar, get wasted, meet some person there, have one night stand. Oh, but this is what I needed, but it's not. What you needed was to love your wife and love your spouse, and love doesn't always mean that this feels good, and that this is what it is. Love is suffering. When Jesus was on the cross, I mean, man, he knew all these people were going to hate him. He knew some of us to this day are going to hate him for no reason. They just heard something on the internet and didn't care to look into it. Why anything? They don't need a reason. They just hate him for no reason. And he still chose to die for them. Still chose to give his life. So many times that, I'm right here. Like literally this chair is moved and I'm on my knees and I'm like, why? Why did this happen? Why does this, Lord, why don't I have this? Why, I've earned it. Why isn't it given to me? Why? And then Jesus is up there going, I gave you my life. Like I died for you. What more do you want from me? What else do you want, my son? What do you want? I gave you my life. Right? I gave you all the instructions you need inside of this book. The Bible. It's in there. But you don't want to read. You want a voice to come to you in your head and tell you what. You want this. You want a bird to show up at your window. You want this. You want that. It's all about you. It's all about what you want. It's all about you. And so when we feel like, man, I'm going to have to give up my dream of becoming this, Range Rover mom, this hot hockey mom. I'm going to have to give up my dream of becoming the King of England, or whatever my UFC dreams, or my my MMA, like all this stuff. And that's when they go, I'm not willing to sacrifice. I'm not willing to give that up for you because I love this more. Like I actually have something invested in this. And that's how you know what you really love, is because they're willing to suffer this circumstance of having to cut this off. They're willing to throw everything else away, including this other human being, for this sport. That's how you're supposed to be for your wife or for your husband. That's how it's supposed to be. Is that, I'll give up the Louis purse. I'll give up the Lamborghini. I'll give up the mansion. I'll give up all this because that person is who you love, not the circumstance that you're in. Do you see what I'm saying? And so, like, even if that person, God forbid, gets in a car crash, quadriplegic, I'm going to be with them and I'm going to make it work because we're going to suffer. We're going to suffer together. That's love. That's what it is. It's not, I love them because they can offer all of this to me. It's I love them because even if they couldn't, I would still be in love with them. That's what it is. That's what it means. And so if you aren't that intense about this person, or you aren't suffering, you don't have things that you hate about this other person, and everything is just this dream, man, wake up. Wake up, because you aren't noticing something, you aren't being honest, or this person isn't being honest, but usually it's both of you together are not being honest about who you actually are, what you actually want, where you want to go. Because if you're like, oh, we both agree, like, hello, that, and I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but I'm saying like it usually doesn't. Right? So, the best piece of advice I could say, man, is, don't marry who you love who you marry. Because that person changes. This year, they love this. Next year, they don't love it. In fact, they're a hateful human being. They're a hateful human being, and they're not thankful for nothing. Some tragedy happened in their life, which is now your life too. And the circumstances changed. Today they're athletic, they're fit, but then tomorrow they got a beer belly. They're not attractive to you anymore, but you married them. Can you love them? Can you still be there? Today they're making $140,000 in the oil patch, but tomorrow the industry shuts down. Job's gone. Can you love them? You're losing the house. You're 2 payments late on the mortgage. Can you love them? Can you love them? Are you still going to be there? And if the answer is no to any of it, then that's not that you're putting yourself in a bad situation, because you're not with who you love. Right? And so that's why it's so important to be picky about who you choose as a partner, and to wait a couple years to see like who this person really is, and to see who you really are. Are you actually in love with this person, or are you in love with the thought of being with this person and all this, but you're not seeing, because you can't see the future, but can you love them regardless of what is in the future? Right? Like that's what it comes down to. And so I wanted to share that because, a lot, so many people I see around me and stuff like that, they suffer, in this marriage, and it's a good thing to suffer, because it means you're sacrificing, that's what it is. That's what it is. And because you love them. Otherwise you wouldn't have sacrificed it. If you love that offering more than you love the God you're sacrificing it to, then you're not going to give it up. You're not going to give it up. Because who do you love more? Like, that's what it is. If you're not willing to give up the video games because your wife needs help with the kids, you know, but you're like, no, I work all this time every week. I work all of this, you know, like I'm paying the bill, like I'm doing this. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. It's because you love those video games more than you love your wife. Truth. Because otherwise you would suffer with your wife. You would suffer not having those video games. And instead, you know, helping your wife with the dishes, or helping your wife with chores around the house, or taking the kids out and doing something, giving her some mental time to recover. Or maybe she works too. And then she comes home and then has another full-time job taking care of the kids. And then you're the one that, you know, oh, I'm on days off. And that's not going to work. Because when you guys got married, you know, it was always making time for each other. Always doing this, always doing this, always doing this. But then as soon as the kids came in the picture, the circumstances changed. The circumstances changed. Because it's not fun anymore. You know, it's not funny anymore. You're not young anymore. You need sleep. You need the sleep. But the kids are keeping you up. But someone's got to do it. You know, hey, the diaper needs to be changed for the 5th time today. You know, 8th time today, 20th time today. Who's going to do it? You know, I did it 19. This is time number 20. No, but who paid for the diapers? No, but who did this? No, but who did that? Right? And so that's why you both need to be in a place where, you know, I love you. And even though there are things that we don't like about each other, I can live with that. I can love you anyway. And I can give up these worldly things in order to keep my spiritual love with you. Because I love you more. That's what it means to be a husband. That's what it means to be a wife. It is to give up your own life for each other's. And it becomes something new. There's a third option that's presented to you. Us. We. That's what it means. That's why, man, you know, you're dating these girls or you're dating these guys and it's never working out. You know, it was good for 2 years, but then they're a narcissist, or then they're this, or then they're that. But the problem's in both of you. And until you realize that you aren't willing to sacrifice, you know, this idea of a person that isn't real, right? And you yourself thinking that you are already perfect and not willing to sacrifice what you love to do and stuff like that, then you haven't met someone you love. Because when you meet someone you love, you'll be nailed on a cross, beaten by the same person, hated on, cheated on, betrayed, all this stuff, and you'll still be like, I love you. Imagine that. You haven't seen it. You haven't seen it. Most of us haven't. That's why you're not married. And so, you know, enjoy the time that you have and work on yourself and be like, what is bare minimum? What am I willing to give? What am I willing to give up and sacrifice for this other person? You know what I mean? And if you do know someone you love, then, you know, ask them. Say, you know, God forbid if I got paralyzed and I can't have sex with you, and the way we used to, or I can't do something like this, or I can't offer these things, or tomorrow my skin wrinkles, and, you know, I'm you know, something happens to my face, or something happens to my body, or something, and I can't do this for you. Would you still be with me? Would you still love me for the rest of your life? Not just till this conversation ends. I mean, until we die and are in the grave. Could you still be faithful to me and love me and do all this? So anyways, I just wanted to share that because I feel like that's such an important message in today's day and age. But yeah, so anyways, that's it. God bless you guys, man. I'm sorry to end on that note, but I gotta start getting ready here, but all right.